Welcome to the Draconic and Friends official podcast, where we peel back the curtain on puzzle games and the people who make them. I'm Syrenne, the producer at Draconic and Friends, and I'm joined as always by Alan Hazelden, the head Draconic at Draconic and Friends.
Hello.
Today, we're joined by Lucie, who you may know from her work on the upcoming Spooky Express, as well as various other games made by Co-op. How are you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing great, thank you.
Awesome. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself? What did I miss in the intro?
Yeah, I'm an artist who works in games. I've been working since 2016. I've done a lot of work at Co-op, like you said, and then I started doing freelancing. I've been freelancing for almost 2 years now.
And one of those freelance gigs being mock-ups and art design and art direction for Spooky Express.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, how did you get into doing art for games?
So I always wanted to be like some kind of an artist when I was a child. I think the first work I really wanted to do was like illustrator for Pokemon cards. But sadly, you have to be in Japan to do that, and it was kind of out of my reach. But I was also like really good at like tech stuff, and I really liked video games. So when I was in high school, I learned that you could study to be a video game developer, and that there were also like video game artists. So I went to like a school that specialized in that in France, and I studied game art for 5 years in a specialized program, and then I got an internship at Co-op and moved to Canada. I was very lucky to get like all of these steps back one after the other. But yeah, so pretty much a dream come true.
And what were you first working on at Co-op?
I joined for GNOG, which was like a 3D puzzle game, very colorful, that Sam Boucher was the art director on. I joined them, when they were like they had the game was pretty much not done, but like most of it was like very advanced, and they just needed help with animation at the end. And so I did my final like graduation internship with them, doing all of the 3D animation on it. And then we did like VR and AR updates for the game by adding a little bit more content for it. And then they hired me as like a full-time member, and I stayed for like almost 6 years in total. After GNOG, we worked on Goodbye Volcano High. I mean, in between GNOG and Goodbye Volcano High, there was a little period of like, we didn't know what to work on, like which new project was going to be made. But at some point, like a few members of Co-op had like a chat at night, and they came up with the idea of like a dating sim with dinosaurs. And it's the end of the world. It was like a meteor coming and everything. And then, pre-production started like 2 weeks after they got the idea, because they were really into it.
That's a really fast turnaround.
Yeah, it was really fast. Like all the other like projects that we had started working on were just like, put on the side. And I ended up being like the main artist on it for pre-production. And so when we started actual production and we hired a lot of people, I ended up getting the role of being art director on it. And we actually hired like a lot of people, and the project was like super ambitious. And so very quickly I had like a team of like 10 artists to manage, which was very, how can I say, I learned a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say that sounds a bit like a trial by fire. How what was your reaction to being told that you were going to be art director?
Well, it kind of was kind of implied a few times as we were doing pre-production that like, since I was the only artist working on it so far, then I would probably be art director on it. And at first, like when I joined Co-op, it was like a very small studio, and there were only like 5 people working there, and I was like the sixth person. And so I kind of assumed that all the projects were going to stay small. So even when they said I would be art director, I was like, yeah, this maybe like we will hire one other artist and that's fine. But then when I realized I was going to be art director of like an actual team, I was really proud and excited, but also kind of panicking a little bit
Understandable.
of
Yeah,
like
fair.
imposter syndrome.
And did the scope of the game grow really quickly, or
Yeah, it was because we were looking for financing, and it's really hard to get funding for like just like a visual novel. You kind of have to sell it a bit better than this. So as we were pitching the project, it kind of like grew in ambition to be more like marketable for financing. And so it became like a narrative experience, like fully animated movie that you play through. And as I was looking at like the different pitching documents, I was kind of like sweating a little bit. I was like, we have to do it after we get the money for it, right? And yeah, when we got the money, like the pitch document was like super ambitious, and it was very daunting. And like the project in the end, like it took 5 years and a half to be made.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was a game I was following for what felt like a very long time after it was announced.
Yeah. Yeah. So and it was announced like maybe 2 years after we started
Yeah.
pre-production. So yeah, it was it was really long, and it was also like very difficult to work on because it's not a type of game that a lot of people have made. Like just the way that it's structured, it has like a very big cascading effect in the production of like we need the script first, so then we can build the scenes and the storyboard, so that then we can have the asset list, so that then we can do the assets. Like it was very like every department was relying on like another department doing their job like in time, and so every time we had like a slight delay in something, it would like delay everything by a lot. And especially because we had a lot of trouble with like the writing, because like it was super ambitious and we weren't sure exactly if it was a dating sim or if it was like a story. Like we had a lot of rewriting the game many times, and every time we would rewrite the game, we would have to like redo the entire asset list basically. So yeah, it was a lot of like trial and error, and sometimes it was a bit difficult to like continue assigning work to the artists, knowing that like maybe in 2 months we're scrapping all of this and like starting again.
yeah, it's tough. Making video games is not fun a
Yeah.
lot of the time.
Uh,
But yeah, I mean, it seems like the end result turned out really, really well.
Thank you. Yeah, I think so too. It's it was really nice when it came out. I was really proud of like the fact that it does exist in the end, and it's really pretty, and the story is really great. And yeah, I'm just sad that like I wasn't able to stay until the end of the project because I burnt out working on it, and also like there was COVID in the middle, which really didn't help with mental health for any of the team members, or like
Understandable.
anyone in the world. But yeah, like I left like 1.5 years before it came out, and so it was like really strange to play it because I knew the characters and like the story and like the big picture of the story, but then like playing it, I was discovering a lot of like how the game came out in the end, which was pretty nice but a bit bittersweet.
For sure. Yeah, I think there's potentially some similarities between that game and A Monster's Expedition, in that A Monster's Expedition was another game that like we were pitching for funding, and then suddenly we got so much more funding than we were necessarily expecting was plausible. And like, okay, well, I guess we got to up our game and that caused problems with the development. And like, I think for Monster Expedition, actually, there's a version of that game that we could have made for like 5 times less money that would have been like 5 times less stressful to make. Do you feel like the pressure and the stress of the development process were like, do you think that came from the added budget and the added scope that came from that? Or do you think it was inherent from making a genre that you just hadn't made before?
I think it was definitely from like the hugeness of the scope, because I think if we had made like an actual like visual novel, it would have been a bit more obvious, like the types of assets that we were going to make, like just like the characters uh profiles, like like basic visual novel style, like portraits of characters, and then uh backgrounds that we can just like shuffle through depending on the place that we're in. But because the budget was so huge and the scope was so huge, we were trying to make basically a playable cartoon with a full storyboard, which implied that like any dialogue also needs to have like a space and animations and camera angles that go from like one character to the other, to then like a wide shot, to then like it was so complicated because then the asset list was huge and entirely reliant on the scripts and on what the action was at any time, at any point in time. And I think that's what made it like so difficult to plan and organize, because it was really hard to have like a good view of how many assets we were going to need in the end for like each character and each location. Even the animations, like there are so many animations that are used only once for like one specific moment in the script, that then if like that moment is rewritten, the animation doesn't have any use anymore. So I think that's what made it like so complex and so stressful, because we really had to be sure of a part of a script before we could start production on it. And it was really difficult to be sure of any part of the script for a very long time. But we found like a few ways to make the process a bit more simple. Like the main characters, we just decided to make like huge kind of like puppet master files with just like the straight on shots of this character with like their full body from the front, from the profile, from like a 3/4 angle, and the back and the 3/4 back angle, with like a lot of different hands that we drew one by one, and a lot of different expressions and lip syncing. And then we could reuse these master files to make a lot of different posing for a lot of different shots. And then we only had to add like some bespoke assets for these characters if we wanted to have like like a view kind of like from like a plunging view from the top, or like anything with like a different perspective. Then we had to make like a separate asset, but at least we had like that one big file. But I think like each of these main character master files like took maybe like 1 or 2 months to make. Like it was so long.
Yeah, you're like front loading that work, going like, okay, we'll make this maximally flexible for the future.
Yeah.
But you can only do that for the main characters. You can't do that for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. So like we had a lot of secondary characters that we designed afterwards, and for which we only have like a few assets because they only appear in a few scenes. But yeah, so much work. It's like giving me like shivers to think about. Such a big project. Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully, your freelance work has been significantly less overwhelming.
Yeah. It has been, I mean, it has a pros and cons. It's like the contracts in themselves are a bit less overwhelming because they're like shorter, and also like it's a bit more clear usually what my role is, and like I tend not to take like a role that is so intense as like an art director with like 10 people to guide. But it's like a bit stressful now in terms of like, finding contracts that can align like back to back. So I have work all the time. That's the hardest part. Because like
Yeah, no
being
kidding.
employed was really nice also. Like just
Yeah,
knowing that you have a full-time job.
you and me both.
Mhm.
No, it's yeah, the freelance life is always unfortunately about trying to find the next gig, but it sounds like you've gotten to work on some hopefully really fulfilling stuff, including I hope Spooky Express has been good for you.
Yes, it has. It's been one of the nicest contracts that I have had actually since I started doing
Aw.
freelance work.
Yeah, happy to hear that.
Ah,
So
yes,
yeah,
yeah,
why don't you talk a little bit about some of the work that you did on Spooky Express?
yeah. So I got contacted end of last year, for like a mock-up of like the general vibe and the characters during pre-production, I think it was.
Yeah, during a
Um,
pitching process, actually.
yeah, pitching process. Yeah. So that was nice. It was like making Cosmic Express kind of like spiritual. Uh, how do you say the next
Spiritual
spiritual?
Spiritual
successor.
successor.
Exactly, but like with a Halloween spooky theme, which was exciting to work on. And also, I think it was in October that you contacted me, so it was kind of fitting. Um, and then I got to work on the project as like a concept artist. And I honestly, like, I've always liked concept art work. I like doing pretty much anything on a project, but I think concept art is like really fun to work on because you can just like draw a lot of random stuff and decide what's good and what's not, and just like look at, inspiration and like try out ideas, which I really like. And yeah, so I did like concepts for a lot of the monsters, some of which are not yet revealed, and also for a lot of the environments and some other stuff like the map. And I think that's pretty much it. But yeah, it was fun, like especially like the monsters and the environments, like trying to find ideas. I mean, mostly for the environments, because for the monsters, you came at me with like a list of specific monsters to make. But for the environments, it was pretty much like think of like just like spooky environments. Here are some ideas, but like, what are your ideas? And it was really fun to like imagine what kind of biomes we could have. I really liked doing that.
Yeah, for this weird Halloween train amusement park.
Yeah. It was also
Um,
fun. Yeah, I also designed the little train, little uh,
mhm.
spooky skeleton train, which was nice.
It's funny because we're recording this just after the release of the demo. In fact, the demo came out like 2 work days ago, and there's just been such a strong positive response from players to the visual style. I don't know if you've seen any of that feedback.
No, I haven't. I was really busy this
No,
last.
players love the visuals, which is like
Oh,
really really exciting.
nice. I'm really glad to to hear that.
Just thinking back to starting working together, we hadn't figured out exactly which game we were making next, so we reached out to a few people to do mock-ups for different games. And I think like you turned in your final deliverable of the mock-up, and probably like 2 weeks later, we were knocking on your door saying, "Yeah, so we're probably going to make this next." it's
I didn't know
I
you
think
were
it.
like mock-upping a lot of different games.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, it was not. It was not the case that had decided at that point to make that game. We were like, yeah, we could make a few different things. Let's like get some mock-ups for each of them, put them side by side in a deck, send the deck to people, see if anyone bites on anything.
Nice.
but then
Well,
also share it with friends and get their feedback. And yeah, the feedback seemed pretty clear that we should make Spooky Express.
well, I'm really glad that you liked my mock-up so much.
Yeah, really hit the vibe.
It was funny because I had started another contract and you contacted me like, can you start in 3 days? I was like,
Yeah.
no, I'm sorry.
Whoops.
And yeah, that's really part of the thing. Is like when we started you like doing that first mock-up, we didn't have a development timeline in mind. We were like, well, we'll start a new project at some point, but we don't know what it's going to be. And then it's like, well, since we know what we want to do next, I guess we should start really soon. It was, yeah. So yeah, you weren't available like to go like the moment we started, but like you were available like so soon after, and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I had started like another contract, but thankfully it was just 1 month. So I was available pretty soon.
Yeah, we're glad that you did because, again, just very, very happy with how it all turned out. Is there a particular monster that we've announced or shown that was your favorite to work on?
Yeah, I think I really like the zombie because it was kind of difficult to design because I was looking at a lot of references and usually I don't really like how zombies look. I think I don't know, like a lot of the time they look like caricatures a little bit. Like I don't know how to say it, but like a lot of the times I have a bad vibe from zombies, so it was nice to try to make one that I myself liked. And I really like the animations that Adam made for the zombie, so I think yeah, I really like this one, like the way it moves and it looks like really stupid and kind of lost. I really like it. I like the colors also. I really like pink and green as like a color combo. So
Nice. So yeah, you've worked on Nog, you've worked on Spook Express. What's your relationship to puzzle games generally?
uh, hmm. I don't think I've played that many puzzle games, except I've played a bunch of Professor Layton, which I really like. But I think they tend to like really make me tired very fast because you have
Fair.
to think so much, and it's like I think for me it's not honest. I'm sorry to say that, but I think for me it's not that fun. I mean it's fun for a while, but then like I don't know, when it gets like the same mechanic one more time with like one more twist, and it's like you have to think again, like you just have your hit of dopamine because you just solved something, and then you have to solve another thing, but like more complicated. It's like, oh no. So yeah, I think I'm better at like working on puzzle games than playing puzzle games.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, before I started working on puzzle games, I was a fair weather puzzle fan. I would play a few here and there. And like I would
Mhm.
enjoy them, but it wasn't like a primary genre. And then I started working on a puzzle game, and then that puzzle designer introduced me to a puzzle designer friend, so I started working on that. And then another puzzle designer, and then another puzzle designer, and then Alan hired me, and then I was working on puzzle games all the time. And very quickly, I just became the puzzle game producer, which is very funny, but not necessarily what I set out to do.
Yeah, and do you feel like you enjoy puzzle games more now?
I do, but that's also, I think, because having worked on puzzle games for a decade now, goodness, I can see it more clearly through a game design lens and like
Mm.
a lens of like what is the design, what is the puzzle, what is the game in conversation with, like what influences did the developer have, which is like very clear in a lot of games. And so yes, if anyone listening wants to learn how to like puzzle games more, might I recommend 10 years of labor.
Okay, I mean,
I'll think about it.
that's a long way round. There are shortcuts.
There are shortcuts. It actually only took me like 3.
I mean, a lot of puzzle games are like really like hard and off-putting. So I think a lot of it is just like choosing the right entry points, which puzzle game fans are not particularly good about shouting from the rooftops about.
So outside of like the 5 or 6 breakout games that have like really broken out into the mainstream, most recently at time of recording was the game Blueprints. Outside of those, the games that puzzle fans love to shout out and be loud about tend to be the really difficult ones made for hardcore puzzle fans, and not like, this is so accessible for everyone. Everyone should be playing this game. So
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I tried Blueprints and I really liked it, so maybe maybe I just need more like puzzle games for non-hardcore fans.
Yeah. Have you played the Spook Express demo much?
No, not the one that we just released, just like older versions that were just internal versions.
Yeah, because I'm aiming for Spook Express to be on the more approachable side of the spectrum, which Cosmic Express was definitely not.
No,
I
not
remember
at all.
I tried Cosmic Express and I really liked it, but like, it's like after 10 or 15 levels, I was like, oh, it's too difficult.
And I think feedback from the demo so far has been really positive on that aspect. I think, it seems like everyone who's tried the demo has been able to get to the end of the demo. So
yeah,
nice.
I don't think anyone's been blocked by difficulty, which has been good. There's a few hardcore puzzle fans that have said that they wish there were more difficult levels in the demo, but like, I don't know. The demo represents the planned beginning of the game. So please stay tuned for the full version.
And it also doesn't include all of the levels for the first level packs of the game.
Exactly. So please stay tuned for the full version of the game if your feedback was you want it to be more difficult and more complicated. We got you. We'll have optional levels. Can confirm. It is, in fact, a Dracnet game.
And they will have a lot of new, very exciting biomes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Alan, is Snowman the only game we've released that has no optional content to reach the ending?
To reach the ending, I guess so, because you need to.
Yeah.
Need to beat everything to get out the gate.
Yeah.
I think Soccer Bond, you need to beat all of the main levels to see the credits, and then you get post-game stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Soccer Bond and Snowman both have that structure.
Okay. Even Electrifying Incident. There's a whole separate... Well, we don't need to get into it again. Fans of the podcast know. God. Anyways, Lucie, just wait. Somehow, 2 days before launch, we're going to be asking you for 7 new monsters because Alan is going to wake up one day and decide that actually the game needs a lot more scope.
Yeah.
I won't do that 2 days before launch. I know what I can and can't add 2 days before launch.
Do you? We'll see.
History proves me right.
History is written by the results of the producer knocking ideas out of your hands. But very much looking forward to this. Honestly, this has been... I would say, even by like a lot of Dracnet standards, this has been a very straightforward and relatively relaxed production.
Yeah, honestly, I was very impressed at like how smooth things have been going. Like, like the milestones were pretty much respected every time.
Yeah,
Which
I'm not used to that either.
yeah, no, I think no one in video games is used to that.
Yeah, no, set up all the milestones, hit all the milestones. Pretty much no scope creep so far. You know, we're recording this on May the 27th, and so fans who listen to the post-release episodes of this podcast are like, when did all the scope creep happen? After May the 27th, 2025, because as of now, the scope has not creeped yet.
Yeah, you gotta wait until like 2 months before the planned release to start adding content.
I also want to be clear that like 2 weeks ago, I told Alan very bluntly, this is like one of the last opportunities to safely change the scope of the game without stressing people out. And he said, no, I like the scope that we have. So,
well, that's very reasonable.
yeah, I also like the scope that we have. I think that the plan is to make a very full game that is not, it's not a slight thing. This is going to be a full Dragnet game, and we're going to make it without stressing out our developing team. And I don't think we need a ton else. And if we do, we can just release DLC 5 years after the game comes out.
5 years.
I think part of it is like we could have been aiming to make this game faster. Like there's a world where we would be like a lot of the content for this game is already done. And so we're just giving ourselves a lot of time to polish.
Yeah.
Polish, but also like test.
Right. Yeah, like by polish, I partly mean like playtest and iterate on the level design and the puzzles.
Yeah, that's often like something that gets skipped at the end of productions.
Yeah. And like your horror stories from Goodbye Volcano High, like reminded me that like for me, when I'm designing puzzle games, like a real priority for me is like making sure that I can make content changes to puzzle design really late into the process. And so anything that like puts barriers between iterating based on playtesting feedback is like a real red flag. And I think that's particularly true of puzzle games, but I think it's kind of true of any game. Like, I think maximizing your ability to iterate and make changes without throwing away work is like probably a very good way to like work for a lot of games.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that the development structure here is hopefully really sustainable. I don't know. I also measure a lot of success by how many people reach out to me worried about hitting deadlines. And we've had that before on plenty of other projects internally at Dragnet, and so far we have not had that once on Spooky.
Nice.
So, fingers crossed on that.
It's either because the production is going well or because people are afraid of you.
I really hope it's not people are afraid of me, especially because so much of the team has worked with us before. But yeah, I don't know. I don't want to throw names out under the bus, but like you and Lucas, who's already been on the podcast feed, are pretty much the new blood in working with Dragnet. And then everyone else is moved from another project onto this.
Right.
Here's a question. Do you feel like the new blood and everyone else knows each other, or did you feel like you managed to fit in?
When I joined, you were talking a lot about the electrifying incident, so I pretty much understood very quickly that like everyone else was already working on something together,
apologies.
and that I was pretty much new. I mean, you don't have to apologize; it's like normal. But yeah, I did feel like a contractor joining a team.
Okay.
Yeah,
but
I guess
not
that
in
was
a
also
bad way.
something where for that we were like kind of juggling between Spooky Express and finishing up Electronic Instant in a way that is like we've not done that before.
Yes, we started the next game before the previous one was done.
Yeah, which can make sense for like a production standpoint to like avoid having like a weird limbo in between projects.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there was just enough people that had basically completely finished their work on electrifying, or so we had thought, that it totally made sense to roll up the next project and, like, for example, put art on something else, right? Because at the time we didn't think that we were going to need anything else art wise for Electrifying Incident.
And you ended up needing more art for it?
Yep.
Not a lot. Most of the additional work on that after the first period of development was polishing up UI stuff or quality of life stuff, and then the game design
Yeah.
changes that happened.
We probably needed a total of three artist days between UI and an alternate ending screen.
I think Ben did the alternate
Ben did the
ending
alternate
screen.
ending screen. That's right. Adam just saw it and laughed, and we took that as it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
But yes, like I said, we had, just from a production standpoint, it made sense to try and keep momentum of having worked more or less as a team, but being able to move on to the next project where, like, some people like Phoenix were still working on Electrifying at the time and doing some preliminary work on Spooky, whereas, like, you and Adam and Lucas and a little bit of Priscilla were able to very much focus on pre-production on Spooky, which was interesting production, interesting creative process. I hope we can do it again without problems. I don't know. I get the sense that Spooky is probably going to, we're not really going to be rolling people onto the next project before Spooky ships, but I say that now.
Yeah, I don't think we'll be spinning up development on a new project before Spooky ships, but the question mark is, like, how soon after shipping Spooky Express will we have a really solid idea of what the next game is? And
yeah,
we will see.
Have you kept, like, some of the ideas that you did, like, mock-ups for in the back to maybe, like, pitch after?
Yeah, we've got plenty of options.
Yes,
Nice.
we are not. Thankfully, we are not short of game ideas. We are short of decisions about what the game is going to be, because when you commit to a game, you're committing to months to years of your life and the lives of people that you're working with.
Yeah.
And so it is just like what is the one that we want to work on next? But yeah, I don't know. Do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, I was wondering, like, how did the idea for Spooky Express come to be?
So someone, we can tell the story now because it's in the podcast feed already. Alan, do you want to tell the story?
Yeah, so maybe 6 months after Cosmic Express released, somebody just sent a message on Twitter saying I would buy Cosmic Express again at twice the price if it was about dropping off monsters at tombstones. And at the time I was like, oh yeah, that's fun. Too bad it's only 2 months until Halloween. Don't have time to make that. And, like, didn't think about it a lot, but, like, that idea just, like, stuck in my brain, and, like, every couple of years it would, like, percolate up to the top of things, like, and I'd chat with Ben and was like, yeah, that could be a fun game to make. So yeah, it was really that one person incepting it into my brain.
That's funny, getting ideas out of the community. And are you going to put Spooky Express at twice the price of Cosmic Express?
No,
No.
it will be the same price as Cosmic Express.
Yes.
But people can buy it twice.
Yeah,
we ain't
that's
gonna
true.
stop
You can go to itch.io and hit pay what you want and type in any number. So I know you're listening, Zach. We're gonna hold you to it. You're gonna need to go into Itch and pay $30, please.
But yeah, I mean, so the idea was in my head for a while, and, like, I knew that it was a cute concept. I guess the thing that it really needed to turn into a real thing was, like, some way that it wouldn't just be remaking the same game again, which wasn't something that I was particularly excited about. I mean, Syrenne, you were here for a lot of these discussions. I would bring Spooky Express up, and I would be excited for it as a concept, but be unexcited to actually like do anything about it.
You would be so unexcited, and I would look at how excited you were, and I would literally prepare a preliminary production plan and say, we can get started on it. This is who we would need to do pre-production. Like, let's go. You're excited about making a game again because, Lucy, for your perspective, we shipped a Monsters Expedition in 2020, and until 2024, we didn't make any games internally. We spent 4 years publishing other people's games.
And how come you didn't work on anything internal?
Burnout from Alan.
Right.
And also we were juggling a lot of stuff.
We were juggling a lot of stuff, but the reason that we were publishing so much and not developing was predominantly burnout. And so whenever Alan would talk about this, he would get so excited. I would be like, yes, I want to latch on to this. I want to take this positive energy. I want to go make a game together. Let's go make, especially because like I hadn't, literally Electrifying Incident is the first time that I sat down with an internally developed Drachnet game start to finish. And I've been working with you, Alan, every work day basically for 5 years. And it took 4.5 years to start a game together. And so I was very excited, and I was like, yes, let's latch on to this creative energy. And then Alan would be like, oh, making the game?
Yeah, and at one point, I said, "Oh yeah, okay, Ben, like go prototype something in PuzzleScript," and he did, and it didn't quite match what I had in my head, and it didn't quite work. And so like it took a fair amount of slow back and forth with Ben to like figure out like eventually I got it to the point where I had it designed in my head and I could say, okay, no, these pieces will work. And I made one test level in PuzzleScript. I'm like, yeah, this works. But it took a lot of like pondering the idea and having it at the back of my brain before the idea could go from like, here's the concept to like, oh, here's the gameplay systems that make me excited to make this a reality.
And how do you design a game that like is kind of like Cosmic Express, but not the same one? Like, how do you like? What were the ideas to make it like a very different game?
So I think from the start, I had this idea that Spooky Express would be more monster focused than Cosmic Express. Like Cosmic Express, you've got 3 alien types, but really only one of them is like special, and the others are kind of just generic aliens, and like they need to get to specific destinations, but they don't have like, oh, this alien has this special property, and that's what makes that alien unique. Only the slime aliens that have that. The other one's just purple alien and orange alien. So I knew that like with a spooky setting, there'd be more scope for like, oh, here's a particular monster, and here's something thematic about this monster that can have gameplay relevance. So that was a big part of why I kept coming back to this idea and thinking, oh, there must be something there. And then the humans is really when it kind of came together when I was planning it in my head, where it's like, okay, this is a passenger that like interacts differently with various different monster types, and the idea of them getting scared off the train, like I think once I had that realization of like the most elegant way to have monsters scaring humans off the train, then I was like, okay, yeah, this will work.
Yeah, because there weren't a lot of interactions between the monsters of Cosmic Express, right?
No, not at all.
Oh, right.
And like, yeah, Cosmic Express, a lot of it was just like, here is gameplay variations, but they're like on the track. You've got like crossings, you've got wormholes,
right.
You've got the slime aliens is like the one alien-y thing, but you've got the I think it's like question mark boxes that anyone will get into, and like none of that feels particularly tied to the setting of Cosmic Express. And I knew that with Spooky Express, I could make it so that it was much more thematic, with like gameplay and theme really being strongly tied together.
Yeah, that's cool. It really works.
I really hope so.
I'm confident.
Yeah, no, any doubts that I had about like the readability, understandability of the mechanics kind of evaporated when I saw people playing the demo, and I was like, okay, yep, this works.
Nice.
Because unlike Alan, I have not been to an event and seen this game play tested. So that was a real okay. This is good. I get to see other people playing the game. And unfortunately, there's not if there were significant problems, there's not a significant amount of dev time left to address many of them. So we would I don't know what we would have to do, but I do not want my hair to go gray because I'm thinking of hypothetical production problems. I have enough real ones. I have enough real production problems. I don't need to imagine what if. Awesome. Is there anything else that you'd like to chat about, Lucy?
I don't think so. I'm thinking, but I think, yeah.
Any recent freelance projects you want to plug?
No, because like a lot of the freelance projects that I've worked on haven't been released yet, so I can't really talk about them. I'm working on a big one right now that I was doing like half a week on Spooky and half a week on this other one. And it's kind of in a rush now. And up until end of July, I'm gonna be working so much on it. And then I'm going to Japan, which will be a very nice reward after all of that. So I'm just excited to rest right now, I think.
Nice. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a real pleasure.
Yeah, likewise.
And honestly, thank you so much for working with us. It's been great getting a chance to work with you.
Yeah. Thank you.
It
was great working with Dragneck.
Yay. Awesome. Thank you for listening to the Dragneck and Friends official podcast. Our music is by Priscilla Snow, who you can find at ghoulnoise.bandcamp.com. Our podcast artwork is by Adam DeGrandis. Our podcast is edited by Melanie Zawodniak. Please rate and review us on your podcast service of choice, and be sure to tune in next episode for more interesting conversations.